Welcome to Reinventing the Arena, the podcast that guides you through the powerful journey of aligning, embodying, and rising into your most authentic self. We dive deep into the transformative power of doing the inner work because the most important relationship you have is the one with yourself. When you align with your authentic self, you naturally attract the relationships and experiences meant for you. I'm your host, Molly Conley, a coach who's passionate about helping you uncover who you truly are using human design, NLP, and self-empowerment tools. Here we explore the art of aligning with your authentic self, embodying your highest potential, and rising above old patterns to create a life that resonates with who you truly are. Whether you're seeking deeper fulfillment in love or your personal journey, this space is designed to inspire your evolution. Together, we'll explore self-discovery, share transformational stories, and uncover the energetic shifts needed to create the love and life you truly desire. This isn't just about change. It's about fully stepping into who you were meant to be. So lady, align, embody, and rise. Welcome to your journey of self-transformation. Welcome to Reinventing the Arena. Welcome back, ladies, to the podcast. I am so glad you're here. I am going to discuss something that, I find a little ironic. It's an experience that I had recently, and it's sometimes lovely to experience this for yourself as well as working with clients on this. So I hear it a lot, and maybe you've thought about it to yourself. Maybe you said it out loud to a friend, and I've tried human design. I've tried to feel my sacral, and I don't feel anything. And so you think it's not real or it doesn't work for you. I really want you to sit with that, especially if you have your sacral defined and you have sacral response, sacral authority. I don't think the belief is wrong. I think it's really honest, and it makes complete sense given everything for each and every one of us. Our conditioning, how our mind works, how, the world we have been raised in. But I also feel there's something important missing from that conclusion. And that's what we're going to dig into today. And so I want to start with what happened that got me to writing this podcast and sharing this with you, because I think it really illustrates better than any sort of explanation that I could give you. So back in June, my husband and I were like living on two separate worlds, we each doing our own thing. And he had been traveling quite a bit for work, and he was just about to leave for another trip. But ironically enough, it was a business trip to Portland where he was going to do business development and meet his new coworkers that he hasn't actually met in person before. All that sort of thing. And so we decided to sit down on the couch, have our own little couch conversation, and discuss what we needed to have him accomplish hypothetically, or what I needed to accomplish hypothetically before he left. We just hadn't honestly made Portland a priority for a few weeks. And not only with our move, but there had just been some things coming up that were like, oh, well, this can wait, right? But we thought this would be just the best time to discuss. Yet during the time on the couch, I really couldn't focus. I had no idea what was going on. I would bring up areas to focus on. And every time I would bring up one thing and start to discuss it, we would have more questions come up. And so I'd frantically write those down, being like, oh, so this is the next thing to get into, or the next thing to research, or the next thing to ask questions about. Then, during all of that commotion, sitting on the couch, I looked at my phone and I had a message pop up from Facebook. And it was a woman who I contacted, back in mid-May. She had this wonderful class that she was putting on as a beta, and it was about accessing your intuition. And I really wanted to be selected as one of the 10 women, but I never heard back from her. Somehow, which honestly is just, how things work nowadays, it seems like, she never got my message. And the class had already started because it was supposed to go through the whole month of June. But she reached out to me anyways and asked if I still wanted to join. But because of the commotion with my husband, because I couldn't focus on one area for us to look into, because of all these extra questions coming up, I couldn't feel my sacral to know if this was what was right for me. She was asking me if I felt like something I wanted to do, but I couldn't tell. She did tell me like the next class was the following day and I would need to make up the first class before then. And my brain started to try to like puzzle piece my schedule together so I could figure out where to put her if we really needed to get this done, if I really wanted to do it. And so my mind started taking over to figure out if it was possible. What was interesting is between her messages and my husband talking to me, I couldn't hear or read or feel anything. It was as if I was kind of like stuck in like a bubble of just so much communication going on. Eventually, the woman said I could message her in the morning if I needed more time to process, and we could find a time to hold the class one-on-one, even if it meant over Zoom. And my mind was still acting like a pinball machine, going through every direction while my sacral was starting to finally push me in directions, but then also going then in opposite directions of what it just said. By that time, I put my phone down, and my husband and I were like, okay, we just need to stop with what we're trying to figure out for Portland and just go to bed. So he went, his direction and I went mine. And that's when I went into the bathroom and I began my nighttime routine. And I was like, okay, what do I need to do here? Like, what is going on? So like, as I'm putting toothpaste on my toothbrush, I asked myself a question. And it started with, what would I do if? And I stopped. I felt a full-on body shiver, basically like a lightning bolt from the back of my body. And it felt like it cleared my energy. Like one of those really weird cold shiver moments, or something serendipitous happens, or it's just something that happens at the right time and you can't believe it and your body gets those shivers. That's what that felt like. And somehow that cleared my energy and it woke up my sacral. And that's when I asked again. I asked my sacral a yes or no question. Do I join the class? And it hit hard with a yes. So hard that I kind of was shocked because, of course, I'm like, this is the work that I do. This is how I share this stuff on the podcast. I explain this to my clients. How is this so difficult for me to actually have this happen today? Why was it so difficult for me to feel my sacral? And I figured it out. My head was getting in the way, which happens to everyone, no matter their authority. But my head was getting in the way of feeling and hearing my sacral. My husband's energy as a manifesting generator was making me feel all over the place because he does have sometimes pinball energy of back and forth through things. And our discussion about Portland was keeping my mind full of different scenarios, lots of what ifs, and next steps, that I had to step away. I had to put the phone down and be in my own energy, get in my own routine, so I could actually feel my response. So let's talk about why that happens, because it's not random and it's not a character flaw. There are real mechanical reasons why your sacral might feel hard to access. First is an open head and an open ajna, or actually even both having them undefined. So if you have it, welcome to the club. But you are literally designed to take in other people's mental energy. That includes their questions, that includes their doubts, and that includes their processes or frameworks. And then you amplify it. This is not a weakness. It's just part of how you're designed, okay? But it does mean that if you're not grounded or paying attention to your energy, a busy environment with a lot of mental noise and stimulation around you, you can actually lose touch of your own inner authority because it gets buried under everyone else's energy, everyone else's opinions, everyone else's processes, everyone's thinking. So in what I just shared with you, I was sitting next to a manifesting generator, and even though Brad does not have those defined either, he actually has an open head and an undefined ajna. He's still learning how to access his sacral and shut the mind off. His mind is super active. And in the middle of a stressful conversation or wanting to make our time on the couch efficient, it can be really difficult separating his mental noise from my mental noise. And then when Brad and I are actually sitting together, we do define our head and ajna together, but it's not connected to our throat. So it can be very difficult to even communicate what we're trying to process, what we're trying to strategize, what our opinions may be, or our thinking, which can honestly lead us sometimes to overwhelm. So that was a whole problem within itself. Thank goodness for a relationship reading and looking at our charts, knowing that that causes problems. But it also can bring solutions when we're in a different state, right? So the second piece is logic circuitry. And honestly, society in general. The logic circuit is part of a collective circuit known as the understanding circuit. It is built for pattern recognition. It wants proof, it wants data, it wants to see something work consistently before it's going to trust. And while that's a beautiful thing in context, the sacral doesn't really speak with data. And the sacral is not, it's like pre-logical. It comes before the logic. It's a body response that happens before your mind has a chance to either question it or evaluate it. So not only can this mean that you could be conditioned by logic through culture of having to choose intellect over instinct, you can honestly keep asking your sacral to prove itself in a language that it doesn't really speak. And when it can't, you're going to conclude that it's not there. Now, if you are also in a relationship with someone that has a lot of dominant logic circuitry, like my husband, that can also impact how your sacral responds. So we are told from a very young age that feeling your way to a decision is often soft, it's irrational, it's unreliable. Trusting your gut, which would be your sacral, isn't considered professional. Even if you consciously believe in human design, there's like layers of conditioning underneath that belief that are still running the old program, that are still running you at a lower frequency than what you could be running with your design. So here's what I would like you to understand or hear from me today in the podcast episode. If your sacral is defined, if you have sacral strategy as a response, you have sacral authority, and you don't feel it, your sacral is not broken. It is not absent. It's not withholding from you. What is more than likely going on is that it's being drowned out. It's speaking, but you've been so thoroughly trained to not recognize it as a signal. Or if you do recognize it as a signal, it's not valid because you're filtering it out even before it reaches conscious thoughts or even your awareness. This is not a human design problem. This is a relationship problem. It's a relationship problem between you and your authority because you haven't made space or made quiet time to actually give yourself permission to meet your sacral. And this is something that can change. I also want to zoom out for a second because I feel this experiment is not just a sacral thing. It's actually everyone and their authority because we all have our own version of this. Every authority requires a kind of unlearning before you can actually hear it or feel it. So let's walk through all these authorities because wherever you are in your human design journey, I want you to feel seen here, okay? So once again, sacral authority. This is for my generators specifically, but possibly for manifesting generators if you have sacral authority. The sacral speaks sometimes in sounds, and it can speak in physical sensations. This can be your stomach actually rumbling, whether you're hungry or not, as a sound. Or it can also be a physical movement of energy where you feel a yes, like you actually, what people like to say in human design, lit up. But for me, I feel a warm glow in my stomach. It's not anxious. It's not the stupid butterflies bullshit that people talk about in relationships. That's not a thing. That's a bad thing. That actually can point me to a no. But that's how my sacral operates as a no, or pushing downward is a no for me, where a yes feels warm, it feels expansive, it actually moves to different parts of my body, usually up to my heart center. So there's areas for you to start experimenting with how that feels in your body. Where does it go? Where does it pull to? Or does it feel flat? Does it take time? Does it need more time to respond? That's still your sacral. But with any of the authorities, most people want them to be loud and obvious, and it's not like that. It's often very subtle, especially in the beginning, before you can start training your sacral. Honestly, the sacral, to train it is possible. Honestly, because I have it, I can tell that you can. Other authorities, we still would have to experiment. Some people have to just really get quiet and make space and time for it, as you would with any sort of relationship. Next is emotional authority. This means that your solar plexus is defined. This one, especially if you're a manifesting generator, can be really difficult because it's asking you to wait. Not forever, but until you move through an emotional wave. This is where you move through your emotion and you pause. You wait for the clarity to come. Sometimes that's, an hour. Maybe that's, especially depending on what the emotion is about. I've known gosh, this is sad to say, because I know we all want it to be quick. We all want it to hurry it up. And then so we can commit to whatever it is. But some people with emotional authority can wait, especially if it's a big decision, months, even a year over something, because the clarity hasn't arrived yet. But learning to ride the emotional wave before committing to something, like I said, it can feel agonizing, but that clarity on the other side is so real. Next is splenic authority. This is the quietest voice in the room. I have mentioned this before in some of my stories, where how the spleen does talk to me because I have defined sacral and spleen, but it's not my authority. I have to make sure that that's what my sacral wants to do. So if you have both of those defined and you still can feel your spleen, your intuition come in, that's wonderful. But checking with your authority is something that I always still ask you to practice and see what happens. So with the spleen, it's quiet. It only speaks once. In movement, especially when maybe you're walking, maybe when you're working out and you're just present in the moment, that can really turn on your splenic authority. The kicker is that it does not repeat itself. It does not explain itself. It just knows. And when you've been trained to justify every decision with logic, a one-time whisper that offers no reasoning is incredibly easy to dismiss. Next is either called the ego or the heart authority. And it's a little bit complicated because it's conditioning around desire, conditioning around wants. So the heart speaks through with what you want, through willpower, through what you generally feel matters to you. But so many of us have been taught that wanting things for ourselves is selfish, that we shouldn't trust our own desires. Learning to let the heart lead can require a whole lot of unlearning. Next is self-projected authority. So this one lives in the identity center, and it works through speaking. You find your truth by hearing yourself talk through something, not by thinking it through alone. It could even be, honestly, if you had like Voxer and talking it out and then playing it back and listening to yourself, you could do that. But usually it's saying it out loud to someone who can hold space without directing the conversation, without giving you advice. The challenge is finding the right person and trusting that talking is the process. It's not a detour from it. Then there's something called mental authority, or also known as environmental authority. So this one's interesting because it's actually not in the body at all. For those that have no inner authority, clarity comes from the right environment and the right conversation. So being in the right space and being around the right people are extremely important for this person to make decisions. The world, though, has a hard time accepting that some people genuinely are not designed to decide from the inside, but that's real and it's valid. Last but not least is lunar authority. This is for my reflectors. Honestly, this is like one of the most radical reframes. Reflectors are designed to take a full lunar cycle, 28 days, before making major decisions. This can be really difficult for people, especially because the culture we're involved in wants speed, it wants efficiency, it wants it now. And it can feel really impossible. But for a reflector, that cycle is not a delay. It's the actual process to getting in alignment and living the life they want. The thread that runs through all of these is that none of them are immediately obvious. Every single one of them requires patience, practice, and trust building. And usually it's against years, if not decades, of being told how to do it differently. So if you've been sitting with this belief that you can't feel your sacral, but more importantly, that you just cannot feel or trust your authority, I want to offer you a different question. Not, is human design real? But have I actually had the conditions to hear it or feel it yet? Because what if it's not that it isn't there? What if it's that the room you have been in has just been too loud? For me, stepping away from my husband, putting my phone down, and standing alone in the bathroom, putting toothpaste on my toothbrush at the end of the night, allowed me to finally hear what my sacral had been trying to say all along. It was there. It had always been there. I just had to get quiet enough to greet it. I hope this episode gives you a little bit more grace for yourself, for the process. Like I said, this stuff takes time. It takes experimentation. It takes being willing to stay curious a little longer instead of closing the door. Thank you so much for listening today. If this landed with you, share it with someone else who you think, who you feel needs to hear it. I'll be back with you again in 2 weeks with a client of mine. We are exploring her moving through change as a 4-1 profile type. She and I have been working together since November of 2025, and she has been on such a journey, and I love it. I cannot wait for you to hear her story as well as all of the laughter in our episode. You will not want to miss it. Also, I am 2 weeks away, which is insane to think about, from pausing my services as my husband and I are moving across the country at the end of August. I will solely focus on my clients during August and September. If you have wanted to explore coaching with me, now is the time. I will be increasing my rates on October 1st. Right now, I have a 3-tiered payment option for clients with monthly payments starting at $150 for 8 months. That payment plan will no longer be available when I open up my services again on October 1st. Go to the show notes to book a connection call so we can discuss working together this summer. All right, ladies, have a wonderful day, and I cannot wait for you to listen to the next episode. I will talk to you again soon. Thank you, lady, for joining me on this journey of aligning, embodying, and rising into your most authentic self. Remember, the most important relationship you have is the one you have with yourself. And when you do the inner work, you naturally attract the love and life meant for you. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love for you to rate and review the show. Your feedback not only helps more women discover the power of self-transformation, but also helps us grow this community. If you're ready to go deeper and align with a relationship and life you truly desire, I invite you to explore my coaching services. Together, we'll use human design, NLP techniques, and self-empowerment tools to help you break through old patterns and create a life that resonates with who you truly are. Visit reinventingthearena.com to learn more and take the next steps in your journey of self-discovery and alignment. Until next time, lady, keep aligning, keep embodying, and keep rising. Thanks for listening to Reinventing the Arena.